All right, so welcome back. Welcome. As you know, my name is Mike Gamms, and we are here live in the Gamms for New York Congressional Campaign Headquarters here in beautiful New York 27, here in beautiful Western New York. District 27 is the massive 8-county district that spans from Ontario County to Erie County and everything in between, basically from Canandaigua to Orchard Park. And for those of you that don't know, I have been nominated for the United States Congress here in District 27. I've been nominated by the Green Party, and I'm on the ballot on the Green Party line for the United States Congress. So that is on June 23rd, which is 8 weeks from yesterday. So in 8 weeks, here in District 27, you can vote for Mike Gamms for the United States Congress. And so a couple things I wanted to update about on my congressional race. So you may have seen in the news that just yesterday or maybe the day before, Governor Andrew Cuomo decided to cancel all of the, he's decided to cancel, or the Board of Elections in New York decided to cancel the New York State presidential primary, right? Which means that you can't vote for Bernie or Biden if you're a Democrat here in New York State. They canceled New York State's presidential primary, which is supposed to be on June 23rd, which is the same day that I am on the ballot for the United States Congress. So they canceled the presidential primary and they canceled several other elections, but they have not and cannot cancel my election. So this congressional election is to replace my congressman who resigned after pleading guilty to insider trading, right? So Chris Collins resigned, he's going to jail, and we have a vacant seat. So we are, yes, so this race on June 23rd, even if they wanted to, they could not cancel this election. So I am still on the ballot on June 23rd for the United States Congress. I am on the ballot in the special election on June 23rd, which is a special election to finish out this term that started in 2018 and goes to the end of 2020, a term that was abandoned by Chris Collins when he was indicted by the FBI and pled guilty to insider trading and resigned. So the special election on June 23rd is to finish out the rest of this year. And the seat is up for re-election again on November 3rd, on the same day as the presidential election. And I submitted my petitions to be on the ballot. I got my signatures, sent them to the New York State Board of Elections, was approved as a candidate on the ballot. And because our campaign is such a radical, instigating, agitating shitposter campaign, I scared the shit out of my Democratic opponent, Nate McMurray, so much so that he got two of his goons, two of his campaign team, to hire Andrew Cuomo's lawyer, Martin Connor, to object to my petitions to try to get me removed from the ballot in November because they are afraid to face me fairly in an election in November. Me, the guy live streaming from a basement with Spider-Man costumes on the wall. The Democratic Party of New York is terrified for me to be on the ballot. And so much so that he sent two of his goons and Andrew Cuomo's fucking lawyer, a guy who was a state senator in New York for 30 years, for 3 decades, and was the state Senate minority leader here in New York, Martin Connor. So they sent this high-powered election lawyer to try to remove me from the ballot, basically over what boils down to almost penmanship, really. So I'm still in progress and trying to fight to maintain my ballot access in November. And like I want to repeat again, there's nothing that they could do to remove me from the ballot in June. They could try, but they can't. There's nothing they could do. I'm on the ballot for the United States Congress on June 23rd. And despite the fact that the State Board of Elections even wanted to cancel that primary, or cancel that special election, just like they canceled the presidential primary, they are unable to do so. So no matter what, this queer radical shitposter, Antifa agitator, comedian is on the ballot for the United States Congress on the Green Party line on June 23rd. And I am fighting to stay on the ballot in November 3rd. I'm not going to roll over and let Andrew Cuomo's lawyer force me off the ballot. He tried to force Zephyr Teachout off the ballot when she ran for governor against Andrew Cuomo in 2014. And they tried to force Cynthia Nixon off the ballot in 2018 when she ran against Andrew Cuomo for governor. And it's the same scumbag lawyer that is coming after me with the help of his friends in the Board of Elections. We're going to be joined here on this stream by Rara Imler in just a moment. So I appreciate you guys being patient. I don't know why this isn't working at the moment, but yes, this is the Mike Gamms for Congress congressional headquarters. This is my headquarters, aka my spider den, which is where all important congressional and superhero business occurs. We just don't know how to get, I just can't figure out how the fuck to get this to work. Let me, okay, oh, not that button. Well, all right. Sorry about that technical difficulty. Looks like we figured it out. You're here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool. I'm very excited to be speaking to the campaign policy advisor for the Mike Gamms for New York congressional campaign. Maybe my favorite congressional campaign. So it's a good position for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I am going to use this position as a cudgel in every political argument from now on, just so you know.
That's good, because that's the same plan I have.
Yeah, it's like, are you going to argue about politics with me, a policy advisor for a congressional campaign? Okay. So that's fair warning. I will be bringing this up at any and every opportunity.
Yeah. Also, what you could do, which I plan to do, is once the world is somewhat back to normal and we start having comedy open mics again, when they're like, "Oh, what's your credit?" I'm like, "Congressional nominee Mike Gamms, here to tell you jokes at this bar."
Yeah, congressional policy advisor Rara Imler. Like, okay, yeah, what a flex, right?
Yeah, right. We get to flex, so it's pretty tight.
I'm glad you asked me to be a part of this, and also, you know, it's forcing me to like do research, which is something that as a nerd I love to do. So
yeah, I feel that. I have a lot of special interests that I like to research. So when I like get into something, I just like go down that rabbit hole. So but it's good that it's something that like, it's not just about us like having like some clout to flex. Like we also are doing the research and stuff because we're advocating for shit that's important to us. Like,
yeah, totally. It's very close, very personal for us too, especially with sex work, you know, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to like to add that's like it's not just about like, oh, this is like this is this fun ridiculous thing. It also gives us an opportunity to platform ideas in the most radical ways that we can. And I appreciate that you really understood what the vision of this like campaign was, which was like to make as much noise as possible about the most radical shit that we care about.
Right.
And
also to give people an alternative in your district, because I feel like it's just, I mean, there's always, I mean, it's election time, so it's always talk of choosing the lesser of two evils, and it's like, wouldn't you rather like to vote for an Avenger than like, you know, some corporate stooge? Like, you know, someone who's willing to like get in on the ground and do like the actual dirty work that it involves, which is what you're doing. So it's cool.
Yeah, well, thank you. It is, it's rather dirty here in the spider den here in the basement, but
yeah, we gotta get you a better lighting rig. See, you can tell I'm an online sex worker based on my wonderful lighting scheme that I've got going on.
Yeah, my lighting is not great because there's also there's some chickens that live in here. They're outside right now because it's a nice day, but sometimes when I'm doing a live stream, you can hear the chickens chirping in the background because they got little baby chickens here. Yeah, so I have chickens as roommates. But Oh, you're breaking up a little bit, but
That's adorable.
yeah.
I like that. Oh no.
Oh, there was a lag.
Okay, let me know when it stops lagging.
Wow, we're killing it
All right,
today.
we good?
We're killing.
Yeah.
No, I mean you're still
Yeah,
lagging.
I think there's something in the air because I've been having problems with the internet all day. So
It's that dang 5G, man. They're after us with their 5G.
Scrambling our brains.
Yeah. But it's sort of working now. It's working a lot better. But yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, I'm super happy that you're a part of this like campaign, and I'm especially stoked that you are the sex work policy advisor, because like there's not a lot of congressional campaigns that have a sex work policy advisor. And I think
Right.
it's important that we don't just we're not just advocating for these issues, but we're also making it a pillar of this campaign is to advocate for sex workers' rights and our platform on sex work, which we have like as you know, but I'm just letting everybody else know, we have a pretty straightforward sex work policy, which the way I see it is there's like 4 main bullet points. One is sex work is work, decriminalize sex work, repeal sesta fosta, classify crimes against sex workers as hate crimes. And that's like the 4 bullet points.
Right, which they did in the UK.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah. We can talk about those point by point if you'd like. If you'd like to go through it, because I made some notes about it.
Oh, yeah, that would be
But we
great.
should probably talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I lagging again?
A hair, but it's not like terrible.
Okay. So I think we should probably talk first about like repealing sesta fosta and why more people should care about that. And like, we could reiterate the points of why sesta fosta is bad for sex workers, which, you know, there's a lot of videos out there. There's a lot of resources out there from people that are far more educated about it than I am. But one of the things that that sesta fosta really threatens is actually like the way the internet works in general right now. It's actually like a lot of like libertarian type groups are seeing it as a free speech issue, as a First Amendment issue, because, you know, if sesta fosta is enforced, like, you know, across the board, it interferes with, you know, your freedom of speech.
Right.
And I think like we should really like hammer home to people that if you like the internet the way it works right now, if you like being able to talk about the things you like to talk about, if you like to sext long distance with your girlfriend in Canada, you know, sesta fosta threatens stuff like that because it threatens our ability to talk about sex and the sex industry honestly. And it actually doesn't, I mean, it actually makes it harder for victims of sex trafficking to get justice and help that they need. And actually, like, you know, sex trafficking has gone up since sesta fosta was put in place. And we'll never really know like the full scope of how damaging it is, just because it's so hard to identify people that are being trafficked now. Because you know, a Reddit post about, you know, help me, I'm being sex trafficked, could be just flagged as like, oh, like as encouraging sex trafficking. So Reddit legally, it makes more sense for them to take down like any kind of post that even alludes to that than to individually go through all the content on their website and like try to monitor it. So it, like, from a legal standpoint, it makes more sense for them to just eliminate any kind of talk about you know, like sex related crimes and things like that. So
because places that and resources that could go to help people are essentially like hamstrung into shutting down because they're at legal liability because of the way that these laws are crafted. And I know we've talked about this before, but it's basically like just another one of these like neoliberal examples where they like send you one thing and say, oh, this is to help victims of sex trafficking, but it's really like the exact opposite. It like they pretend to be one thing and then they like hit you with the other thing. And it's really sort of scary to me that like there already was so few safe places and resources, not just for like sex work, but for sex workers. And this just like shuts down and takes away some of the very few like safety nets that there even were, and make things like way more difficult.
And when I say sex work, you know, I obviously include all forms of sexualized labor, but the people that are most in danger are people that are doing like full service sex work. The people that are like, you know, like escorts, like people that are on the streets, you know, and a majority, you know, an overwhelming amount of those people are, you know, they're Black, they're trans, you know, they're queer, they're people of color. So this is not just a labor issue, it's a racial issue as well.
Absolutely.
So it touches on a lot of different things. It's a very intersectional issue to abolish sesta fosta. And like you said, it's a very neoliberal thing to name these, you know, to name these acts like, you know, like Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act. Like nobody wants to be against, like I object.
Right.
I object to that. And it's unfortunate because it was actually, I think, co-authored by a woman who was sex trafficked through Backpage. And that was one of the intents of the bill was to get it shut down, which incidentally, Backpage was shut down like I think right before sesta fosta became law. So like the necessity of it seemed to kind of disappear in that regard.
I see.
And yeah, like I said, it's harder for trafficked victims to seek out help. It's harder for full service workers to screen their clients, which means that they are put in more dangerous situations because there's no way for them to safely communicate with each other about, you know, potentially harmful and abusive clients. So then they're taking jobs that they're not, you know, 100% sure about, or they're accepting help from people who are going to exploit them, like basically trying to pimp them out. So it is like, it's a labor issue, it's a racial issue, it's a feminist issue, you know, there's a lot of intersecting things. So that's why, like, if you're wondering why, like, I'm not a sex worker, why should I care about this? You should care about it, because it's all of those things, and it's a First Amendment issue.
Yeah,
which I know, which at least the libertarians are on top of.
Right, like it's a censorship issue. Like if human safety of marginalized people isn't enough to compel you to give a shit about this issue, then at the very, like, you should give a shit about the censorship issue of it as well. And just one thing, when we were talking about like the language of sesta fosta and how they like weaponize that it's like a defense, or like it's supposed to stop sex trafficking, is like the language that they use. It's the same thing that like trans folks do when they talk about like a defense of women, but it's really an attack on trans women.
Right.
It's even the same thing that religious groups do when they talk about, oh, our religious freedom. What they really are doing is like weaponizing language to mean something other than what it is. You know, it's the same reason why they call themselves pro-life. When they're not pro-life, they're anti-choice. It's like they always find ways to wrap up their horribleness in a nice, like, pretty little bow, or at least try to. And that's why it's like important that we really pay attention and be on top of these things.
Yeah, definitely. And also, just the more we talk about it, the more we can destigmatize the entire industry, because you know, there's outright hatred for sex workers, but I think that there's also a lot of misunderstanding about what that term includes, and about the kind of people that do sex work, because it really is everyone under the sun that can be a sex worker and that is a sex worker. You know, there's people that are already rich that become sex workers, like they become like high-end escorts. There's people that are dirt poor that start, you know, selling nudes for $1 a piece. Like that was kind of like how I started. I just like did the typical thing like 2 years ago. I was like, I'll sell my nudes on the internet because I'm so fucking broke. And I had a full-time job. I had a full-time job with benefits, and I still was so broke that I had to do sex work. And a lot more people do sex work than I think is ever really reported on because of the the stigmatization of
and the
sex
criminalization
workers.
as well.
And the criminalization, yeah. I mean, even if you're doing something completely legal, you run the risk of, you know, like you can get like your bank accounts shut down. You can get your IP address blocked from different sites like Instagram, very anti-sex worker, like very, very whorephobic. And like a bunch of other sites like that, you could just get shut down and you're totally deplatformed, which means that your income is incredibly impacted, if not like completely destroyed.
I see.
So yeah, so there's a lot of like things that go into it. So it's not just like a moral thing, but it's also like a legal thing, because when something like this happens to you, like if you're engaged in like something that's maybe like, you know, quasi legal or not quite legal, and your only source of income gets shut down, it's like, where do you turn to for help? Or if your money gets stolen from a platform you're using, which has happened on OnlyFans, which has happened on a lot of other, you know, supposedly like, you know, reputable porn platforms, is like people's incomes just being snatched out of thin air. And then there's like hardly, you know, what legal recourse do you have? So it's, when we talk about like, when we talk about repealing sesta, fosta, and decriminalization, we also talk about, you know, like figuring out how to protect people as laborers. So
yeah, absolutely.
Something to think about.
And I think it's pretty clear that like prohibition doesn't work. Like it doesn't matter even like what the issue is, by trying by criminalizing things and taking away places to do these things safely, they make things way, way, way more dangerous. We see that with drug use. We see that with sex work. We saw it with, you know, when they prohibited alcohol. It just forces people underground, and then you're unable to get resources, particularly with the like it's hard to get help because of the stigmatization and the criminalization, where it's like you could have worse repercussions for seeking help than for what you were dealing with. Like you could, you know, and so it's not quite it makes things more difficult. I did want to talk to you about this. So I know Sesta Fosta was, I think, in early 2018, maybe, right? I think so.
Yeah, that was like right around the time I started sex work, actually. Was right around the time that came into fruition.
Yeah, I remember around when that was. But it sort of seems like, at least the impression that the general public may have, the ones that are like that pay attention to sex work to some degree, it may seem like that right now is like a really safe time to be a sex worker online, particularly with like sites like OnlyFans. And I know you were talking about how there's been issues with people and their bank accounts being frozen, or their money being frozen and stuff like OnlyFans. So I just sort of wanted to talk about it a little bit, about how it's maybe not like some people like to maybe think that, oh, well, because of OnlyFans and some of these other sites, everything is like peachy, but there's actually a lot of difficulties and obstacles and challenges with that as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we should talk about OnlyFans primarily because it's like the most popular, like, you know, adult platform right now. And it's been popular for what, maybe like a year and a half or so. But I think it's been around a little bit longer than that. But one of the things with OnlyFans, and this is part of the reason why people need to like inform themselves more about sex work, is because you know, despite what like, you know, Instagram influencers or like Twitter influencers might lead you to believe, like, you know, the chances are of you starting an OnlyFans account and making like 10K your first month are slim to none, unless you have a huge like social media following to begin with. Like, you know, so there's a lot of like misconception about the kind of money you actually make, but also the kind of fees that you get hit with OnlyFans. And so with OnlyFans, if you have a $10 subscription price, and someone buys that, the content creator makes $8 of that. They take a 20% cut. And sometimes they take, for tips, which are separate from the subscription.
Mm-hmm.
If someone tips you $10, they could be taking up to, I think, in some cases, up to 50% of that.
Oh, wow.
So when you are tipping your favorite creator, you're buying stuff, like they're getting hit with fees, like fee after fee after fee. And that's before taxes. So we still get taxed on top of that.
Like, and that's going to, and those fees are going to OnlyFans, who are making money off this. And
and they don't do any kind of marketing.
I was going to say, are they doing
anything
anything for you? Like, are they doing anything for their content creators, like to promote them or even protect them or anything? You know, what?
Very little. Very little. And it shows in the fact that if you just go on Twitter and you go and you like put in OnlyFans leaks in the search bar, you will find, I mean, don't fucking do this, by the way. Whoever's listening to this, don't be an asshole. Pay for your porn. But if you are curious to see how prevalent like leaks are with OnlyFans, all you have to do is just type in OnlyFans leaks on like any platform, Twitter or Google or whatever, and you will come up with, you know, probably a dozen or so people at least at any given time that are like, I've got the OnlyFans link folder, hit me up. So
yeah.
So part of the problem with OnlyFans is that they don't prohibit like screen recording. So if you log in and you have a smartphone and you log into an OnlyFans, you're like, I'm going to record this screen and then I'm going to upload it to Reddit, or, you know, I'm going to upload, you know, encrypted file and give it to all my buddies, or you can do that. And it's illegal, by the way. You cannot distribute copyrighted information like that. But again,
it's illegal, right? But they're just
completely illegal.
We're talking about internet trolls and internet pirates, just like it's illegal to pirate Hollywood movies, and people do that. But the difference is you're not stealing from $1 billion Disney corporation. You're stealing from like someone like you and me, you know, like
independent creators. But also you're stealing from people that don't have, it's not like stealing from Taylor Swift, you know, like you're stealing from people that don't have the resources to fight back against that, who don't have like the legal resources to like hire a lawyer and track all, you know, or hire someone in tech and track all this down. Or, you know, what's really devastating is when people's content gets stolen and gets uploaded to other porn sites, and someone else is making money off the content that you made. So it's just like a double whammy of just like your privacy has been violated, because, you know, a lot of stuff on OnlyFans is behind a paywall. So you're losing income, and you're watching someone else make money off of the content that you made, that you put your blood, sweat, and tears into.
Right.
So it's incredibly problematic. What's that?
I said, you said put your blood, sweat, and tears in it, and I was like, and maybe even more fluids than that.
Yeah, so many fluids.
And there's also like an issue of sort of like consent and bodily autonomy. Like when you upload your own content on your terms to a site, that's you having autonomy over your body, and someone is stealing your body essentially for their own use without your consent or permission. And it's not only that, it's incredibly dangerous, because depending on how much information you have, even if it's behind a paywall, I mean, I've heard a lot of, I mean, this happened to me, I think, was it late in last year, I got outed to several of my high school friends by another high school friend who found my sex worker Twitter and went around and told all of my high school friends that like, oh, look at Rara's sex work Twitter, look at this, like basically trying to mock me for it, and sent that to like my entire friend group from high school. And it was one of my friends from high school who is dating a sex worker and is themselves a sex worker, was like, hey, so and so is doing this to you, by the way. So you're the likelihood of you getting doxxed, I mean, like there's people where it's not safe for them to come out as sex workers. Right. So for someone like me who is out and proud about it, it's not really like that big of an impact. I mean, it sucks. It sucks finding, you know, and it is harmful in a lot of ways, but there are times when it's outright dangerous to be out as a sex worker. And in fact, it can actually really fucking ruin your life. If you have a vanilla job where you work with children,
or, you know, you work in the government,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know,
like what if you're running for Congress? That could be complicated.
Yeah, like, or, you know, or you work in like DC, you work in politics or something, and you're not ready to be out, you know, like that's obviously not something that most people will ever forgive you for, right? If you're ever just a sex worker.
Unfortunately, like we would like to fix that like stigmatization, and that's what like part of this advocacy would help, is if we could destigmatize these things. It could help minimize the risk of being outed, like by the effects not being as severe. But as where we're at right now, it's very dangerous, and it could be really screw up some people's lives, you know?
Yeah, and not only that is, I mean, you know, I think of the amount of like, you know, people that are in abusive relationships maybe and are trying to get out, and sex work is like one of the ways they're trying to make an income in order to become more independent. That's a scenario that I've seen play out with sex workers I know, where they're trying to use like online sex work especially to become more independent and leave their partners, and someone outs them and it leads to more abuse. Or you know, like they live with relatives who are very like conservative or religious or something and not understanding at all, and that leads to more abuse. So there's a lot of like different factors that like go into online sex work, and it's not something, if you're out there and you're thinking of starting an OnlyFans, I know I'm making it seem like it's all horrible. It's very fun at times. And you can make a lot of money at it, but these are the kind of risks that you have to weigh, unfortunately, if you're going to get involved in any kind of sex work online or in person. So, but yeah, but we're going to try to destigmatize it. We're going to make it so that it's safe to come forward if someone's, you know, threatening like revenge porn or distributing your content. I mean, that's the goal eventually, is to make it so you can call a hotline and be like, hey, I found my content on a website. And then can you get it taken down? This is my ID. This is my, you know, Twitter handle. Here you go. So
that would be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if the government you can call a hotline and they fucking help you fix it. Like, crazy, I know.
Sexwork.gov, you know.
Oh shit, that'd be cool.
And so as you're talking about like the dangers and how it does like put people at more risk of like abuse when they're outed, and stuff like that. And I think that it does tie into what we were talking about classifying crimes against sex workers as hate crimes, because of the stigmatization. And we have to be honest, there's a very much a dehumanization of sex workers, and it not just through behavior, but even just in like culture, like if like just the jokes that are told, and like just the way in which sex workers are portrayed in popular culture and have been, adds to this dehumanization where it makes people treat someone like less than human. And that's why like it's so important that people recognize that that's why some of these crimes are occurring, and that's why it should be classified as a hate crime, because the crime is being done because the person is a sex worker. Like, and that's and it's because of that stigmatization and dehumanization. So it all sort of like it all comes like together. It all
flows together. And this is another thing from just being really very online as a sex worker is you know, I see these kinds of hate crimes happen a lot. And it is really terrifying, by the way, when, I mean, I wouldn't compare it to any other kind of struggle, because it's not like who's struggling the most, but it must be, it's very alienating to see someone that's like going after sex workers specifically because they hate us, and to know that there's no kind of legal recourse that can happen unless a bigger, like a more serious crime is going to be committed, you know, like a crime that will be legally recognized. And it's really unfortunate that we have gotten to this point where, you know, the sex industry makes billions of dollars, but how much of that goes to ever protecting us as individuals, you know?
Or to the individuals either, you know?
Yeah, it's zero. It's not, unless you work for like a production company, maybe you will get some kind of protection. But most of the time you're kind of out on your own in the wind. And that's what's kind of beautiful also about like the like marginalized communities like this is that there is a network of people that rely on each other. I notice this a lot about like strippers and full service workers and like online workers, is that we do rely on each other as a community to kind of push back against this kind of stuff. So there's a very anarchist spirit to modern day sex work, because it is a spirit of like mutual organization, and like horizontal like aid. So if you can bring that to a policy level, and you can like present like real like, you know, government level aid, imagine like, you know, people wouldn't be falling through the cracks so much, you know, people wouldn't be so desperate. There's some people that wouldn't even be doing sex work anymore because they'd be offered resources to get out of it.
Right.
So, I mean, that's another reason why you should support sex work policy, is because you should support the sex workers that don't want to do sex work. They want to do something else, you know, but they don't have any other options. So, because it's not all, you know, as much as I am a, you know, fierce advocate for it, sex work is not all empowerment and girl power and, you know, and like liberation. It can be quite oppressive at times, and it can be incredibly stressful. And you can make $0 in a month, you know, like, so it's in order to like humanize the issue, you have to like be able to see all the nuanced parts of it. So that's what I ask people to do, is just to be like, whenever you see somebody that's like, yay, I made 20K in my OnlyFans, you got to recognize at the other end of that spectrum is the girl that made $2 on her OnlyFans.
Right,
you know?
right. And was like, getting that $2 took work to get that $2.
Yeah,
like,
or just like $20, because that's the minimum payout. In the UK, you have to make like $200 on your OnlyFans to tip out. So it's even worse in some places in the world. In America, it's not as bad, but I digress. There's a lot to talk. I mean, this is just like really touching the surface of
we're just scratching the surface, and there's like but it's really, there's a lot of nuance to the issue, and there's a lot of things that people don't understand about the industry. A lot of things I don't even understand. I'm still learning, and I know you're still learning, and we're just trying to learn more about this and how to help create the safest community that we can for everyone, you know. And so so
I mean, this is very exciting, you know, because I know we're a shit posting campaign, but the idea that these, you know, that our policies could possibly go forward, or that we push other people to the left and try to like even just get heard is really exciting for me, just because like, you know, it feels like we can be very powerless at times with our destinies, you know, as far as like working class people. It feels like we're kind of just like dragged along with whatever politicians want to do. But I think you getting into a campaign, you getting on the ballot is like a pretty big deal, and I think we should like celebrate that. It's like, if you want to get on the ballot, like imagine what your campaign could look like. You can make it however you want, DIY, you know.
I kind of think of it as like we open the door, like we even just stuck my foot in the door that they've been trying to close on us forever, and it's allowing us to push some ideas in. So we're shit posters, but also our policy is very real, and just like forever, no one can ever take away from you that you're a congressional campaign policy advisor, and no one can ever take
going on my Wikipedia
going on the Wikipedia. No one can ever take that away from me. They can also never take away our policy that we have we push this as congressional campaign policy. And it has to start like somewhere. Like you hear everyone talks about the Green New Deal now. Well, the Green New Deal was first written by the Green Party before it was like platformed. It started small when no one was paying attention, and you had to keep it from the ground floor and work its way into the mainstream and hope that it doesn't get co-opted along the way, you know?
And we're hardly the first people to be talking about this too.
Absolutely not.
I would hate for everyone to look at us and be like, oh, like they're doing it. And it's like, no, this was like work that's been done by people far more dedicated than
yeah,
me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Far more involved. Like I personally like, and you know, this is kind of, you know, this is not an excuse or anything, but as a working class person, it's hard to get plugged in to advocacy work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of my goals to really get plugged in with sex work advocacy groups.
Yeah.
And to really just be a mouthpiece for them, because they're the ones putting in all the real work on the ground level.
Absolutely. So I definitely would like to further extend that invitation to and we're going to keep reaching out to the people that have been advocating for this stuff way longer than we have, to help to work together, because that's our only way, no matter what we do, is to work together. But
definitely. And please reach out to me. Like, if you are a sex work advocate, or if you you know, just you want to say your piece, and like, or you have some resources that you'd like to be connected to or anything, please give me a holler on Twitter. My DMs will always be open for something like that. It's at Island Goth.
Island Goth. When I upload this, I'll put on some titles and stuff too, so we'll be able to do that.
But you can, my DMs are always open for that kind of stuff. And it's important for us to connect with each other. It's important. And you know, if anything I say on any podcast or something, and someone's like, I don't think that's correct or something, please correct me on it. I don't want to be wrong on stuff like this. Yeah,
we are open to communication, and we're not claiming to be perfect or the first people to do this or the only people to do this. Far from it. But we all have to, like, we're just trying to do our part.
Oh, well, I kind of got cut off there again too, really killing it on the technological front. But thank you for tuning in. And you can tune in here every single Wednesday at 4:20 Eastern. You could join me live from the Mike Gamms Congressional Campaign Headquarters here in beautiful New York 27.